Hello, my name is Ernie Keane and we are UATV English. We are online to give you the perspective of reality directly from Ukraine. Watch in the episode 3 years of FPV drones in combat. Drones changed the warfare forever. Russian way of culture. Russia assaults world religious heritage. United States Republican Marcy Kaptur warning the US must stand with Ukraine and turn its back. Now, by even just watching this episode, you help Ukraine to fight off Russian aggression. Please comment and subscribe to our channel while watching it. It helps the voice of Ukraine to heard around the globe. Welcome to the News Pools. Russia's Ministry of Defense has once again reported the downing of drones over several regions, including Tambov Oblast. In the city of Kotovsk, a gunpowder plant was targeted. This is one of the largest facilities producing ammunition and gunpowder for small arms. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the plant has increased its output by 30%. It is, or better said, was under international sanctions since March 2023. So let us just say it was targeted by sanctions of sorts. There isn't a single news episode these days coming out without the word drones in it. Indeed, in a real combat, it is way more than just a word.
The security service of Ukraine strikes and will continue to strike the enemy, even where they believe themselves to be untouchable. We are working to surprise them with new operations just as painful as Operation Spiderweb. In full accordance with the laws and customs of war, we targeted entirely legitimate military objectives, air bases and aircraft used to bomb our peaceful cities. What we are doing is real demilitarization of the Russian Federation. Vasyl Maluk, Lieutenant General, Head of the Security Service of Ukraine.
It was on June 10th, 2022 that a new era began on the battlefield. Exactly 3 years ago, pilots from Signum unit became the first in Ukraine to successfully use an FPV drone in combat. It was 2022. The full-scale war was only beginning to escalate. At the time, use of FPV drones was not a common thing at all, and most people couldn't even imagine a drone being used as a weapon. Today, we're operating FPVs via fiber optic links and even using them to take down major airborne targets. And Russia uses drones to attack civilians and attempts to erase Ukrainian culture as such, using it. Do these sites like legitimate military targets to anyone? I wonder. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Russia has destroyed or damaged 670 churches and houses of worship, killing 60 members of clergy from various churches and religious organizations, and many priests and pastors have been illegally detained and are held captive by Russians. Faith is not the only value that Russia is trying to deprive us of. Russians have stolen over 1.7 million items of Ukrainian cultural heritage from the occupied territories. The theft from Ukrainian museums is overseen personally by Sergei Naryshkin, the director of Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. According to Mykola Tochitsky, Ukraine's Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications, speaking to Ukrinform, Russia is systematically and deliberately destroying Ukraine's cultural heritage.
In earlier times, when Russians appropriated our name and our history, they would remove cultural artifacts and transfer them to institutions like the Hermitage or museums in Moscow. Today, they are actively trafficking these items on the black market. Mykola Tochitsky, Minister of Culture and Strategic Communications of Ukraine, in an interview with Ukrinform.
St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev is the oldest church coming from the era of the ancient Kievan state. Construction began in the 11th century under Prince Vladimir the Great, who baptized Rus, what some call modern Russia today, by the way. St. Sophia is UNESCO World Heritage Site. The cathedral survived the Mongol Tatar invasion in the 13th century. Under Joseph Stalin, there were plans to demolish it. It endured World War II and remained intact. And yet now Russia hits it with assault drones.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth announced plans to scale back funding for military aid to Ukraine in the next U.S. defense budget. The Associated Press reports on that on June 10th. This comes after a long month of predictions and threats from the USA to withdraw from the negotiations process and a several-week-long pause in military intelligence sharing that possibly allowed the Russians to push Ukrainian forces out of the Kursk region back in early spring 2025. This is a reduction in this budget. Hackett told lawmakers during testimony before Congress, this administration views the conflict differently. We believe a negotiated peace is in the best interest of both parties in alliance with America's national interest. Should the proposed cuts go through, Ukraine could receive fewer critical air defense systems, assets that have proven vital in repelling repeated Russian brutal aerial assaults.
This is a reduction in this budget. This administration has a completely different view of this conflict. We believe that a peaceful settlement through negotiations is in the best interests of both sides and in the interest of our country. Pete Hegseth, U.S. Secretary of Defense, during a speech to the U.S. Congress.
Since Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, the United States has provided more than $66 billion in support to Ukraine, according to AP. And if America will create artificial restrictions on further aid supplies and even purchases of weapons, this will improve Russia's ability to hit Ukraine with missiles which have American components in them, by the way. Because Ukraine will have obviously less air defense, and God forbid, if the United States administration will decide to use a kill switch button for Patriot air defense complexes, it will surely make the day to Russian dictator Putin. The United States should continue supporting Ukraine rather than abandoning it. That's what Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur emphasized during a congressional hearing on Tuesday, according to a post on her official XCOM account.
Ukraine has been at war for over 10 years. What they have done with drones is impressive, and it will change the course of the war. We must help freedom prevail. This is the most important test of freedom for NATO allies in my lifetime. And we had better help them win. Marcy Kaptur, U.S. Congresswoman. During hearings in the U.S. Congress,
Kaptur noted that one of her questions to U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was about what steps he is taking to maintain strong ties with Ukraine rather than allowing the current administration to distance itself. We must help freedom prevail, she stressed, adding that Ukraine's fight is crucial not only for its own survival but for the entire free world. Obviously, this abandon your partner strategy for the NATO leader state is slightly different from the previous administrations when the President Biden made Ukraine's NATO accession and defense a priority of the United States foreign policy. Well, looks like the hearts changed by now. Ukraine's foreign ministry criticized the Hungarian government for what it described as biased rhetoric about the war and President Vladimir Zelensky personally. Speaking on June 10th, MFA spokesman Georgi Tichy said Hungary's communications about Ukraine have, I quote, gone off the rails.
Ukraine proposes a complete and unconditional ceasefire while Russia rejects it and continues the war and killings with its all might. But for some reason we do not see Hungary demanding that Russia agree to a ceasefire. Official Budapest is silent on this issue, or it continues to absurdly accuse Ukraine of not wanting peace. Georgi Tichy, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, during a press briefing.
Tichy also said that Hungary is either silent when it should take a principled stand or just makes baseless accusations when cooperation between neighbors is needed. It's not surprising that even a simple media interview by a Ukrainian official provokes nervous, exaggerated and unfair reactions from Budapest, while Kyiv remains open to dialogue and cooperation regarding the rights of Hungary's ethnic minority in Ukraine. Tichy warned that Hungary's strategy of vilifying Ukraine is short-sighted and bound to fail. His comments came in response to recent remarks from Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Orban accused Zelensky of interfering in Hungary's internal affairs and campaigning for the opposition party TISA.
Zelensky lashed out at us because Hungarians refuse to die for Ukraine. We don't want our children coming home from the front in coffins, and we don't want Hungarian money going to Ukraine. Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, in response to Vladimir Zelensky.
On June 9th and June 10th, the two first stages of a major prisoner swap between Ukraine and Russia has begun. Ukrainian defenders under the age of 25 were amongst those returned home, according to Clash report. One of the released Ukrainian POVs revealed the condition of his body after captivity, covered in numerous injuries, including large scars and a burnt-in inscription, even reading "Glory to Russia," evidently inflicted by Russian captors. The prisoner exchange will continue in several phases over the coming days. Ukraine hopes to fully implement the humanitarian agreements reached during the Istanbul meeting. Let us start the topic with a quote of a Russian negotiator of sorts, an ex-minister of great Russian culture of violence, war and destruction, Vladimir Medinski.
We want peace, but if Ukraine keeps being driven by the national interests of others, then we will be simply forced to respond. Vladimir Medinski, Russian negotiations team head.
Well, Vladimir Medinski is a chairman of the Interdepartmental Commission on Historical Education of Russia. Historical meaning Putin's education, as Medinski first gained prominence in Russian political circles through his interpretations of the past, as he interpreted the past exactly the way Putin wants it to be interpreted to justify the war in the present. Who is Medinski and why so suddenly important for Russian diplomacy after all? Our dear friend Anna Danilchuk and Edward Lucas will try to answer this tricky question.
It is very interesting to answer this question after Tulsi Gabbard, the head of the US intelligence, released a video yesterday that echoes the Kremlin propaganda threatening the world with the nuclear war, and forgetting to mention that the only country responsible for this escalation is actually Russia. With Putin's regime, with the control of FSB, with more and more ideologists like Medinsky speaking about the need to restore the Russian Empire or the Soviet Union, countries that liberated itself from that prison of the peoples want protection, want defense. We see what is happening when you live next to Russia, and that is why, as independent countries in the 21st century, we choose to join the European Union or NATO, and we are free to do that. Russia has committed so many war crimes that unfortunately many forgot to count. And Medinsky is one of the ideologists. He is really good in PR, and we have to confess, Russia is really good at spreading propaganda messages. They base them on the Soviet propaganda, on the Russian Empire propaganda, and become extremely toxic.
I think that we need to be very careful in our choice of language here. These are not negotiations. As far as the Kremlin is concerned, Medinsky is not a negotiator. This is not about peace. This is a kind of political circus with several aims. One is to intimidate the Ukrainian population with threats. Another is to show contempt for Ukrainian statehood and sovereignty, because Medinsky, as a propagandist and so-called historian, has undermined that. Offensive against Russia, deep inside Russia. What Ukraine does with its sabotage drones is far more effective than what Russia does with its negotiating points. And my message to the West is give Ukraine the weapons, and particularly the money that it needs to produce weapons, in order to get onto the front foot on the battlefield.
According to Medinsky, all lands annexed in Ukraine by Russia or elsewhere on the planet are Russian de facto, and then immediately de jure. Russian culture is superior. All those who dare to oppose Russian brutal criminal aggression today are neo-Nazis. Asking who is Medinsky, the legit answer is nobody. Interchangeable asset he is. There are dozens of Medinskys in top-level Russia, Putin's pocket historians, mouthpieces to spread Russian Tsar's inflated imperial KGB narrative all over the world. Mother Russia wants peace, but is simply forced to invade and kill and burn and rape and abduct children because it is wicked West who is pushing Russia as a great bad NATO is coming. And according to another top Russia official responsible for relations with United States, withdrawing NATO troops from the Baltic states now will help to end the war.
The American side is pushing for practical solutions that address the root causes of the fundamental problems between us and the security sector. Among these reasons, NATO expansion is top priority. Russian Foreign Affairs Minister's Deputy Sergei Ryabkov.
Well, this is a rare occasion when we all can agree to Comrade Ryabkov, I guess, as NATO expansion is a top priority indeed. We need to expand. And we might even thank the only man who ever made NATO expand for two countries, Finland and Sweden, in the course of just 1 year. It's Comrade Ryabkov's boss, Vladimir Putin, as Putin's terrible militarist adventure in Ukraine shattered the world. It was fun to learn that on May 29th, US Special Representative for Ukraine Keith Kellogg said Washington is open to discussing Russia's demands on NATO enlargement. The Kremlin, in response, said it welcomes this rhetoric from the United States. Well, the right of the states to freely choose their own alliances is enshrined in multiple international treaties, by the way, but who cares about treaties these days, right? So let's just follow Putin's wish list. Maybe that will stop him from attacking NATO in general and Baltic states in particular, where 100,000 Russian troops already gathered right on the border. Well, that's it, folks, for tonight. My name is Andy Keane, and we are Creative English, working hard, trust me, to reveal Ukrainian perspective for reality for you. Please comment and subscribe. Your presence matters a lot as it helps us fighting off Russian criminal aggression. Remember, we are fighting for the same values you would, we hope: freedom and sovereignty. Stay safe and tuned for more tomorrow. It was News Pulse. See you at the next beat. Goodbye.